Hey Kevin, thanks for using Racers 360. I'm Dion, I'll be your coach today. You're driving really, really well. It was fun watching your video, make my job challenging, which I always enjoy. I think we do have some good things that we can continue to work on though. A little bit of line changes through the S's, and then a little bit of work on the back half of the lap as well. Mostly some small, subtle line change things. So let's go ahead, turn the volume off for right now, start playing through turn 1, turn 2, it's perfect. It looks really, really good. Nice turning point. If I were to nitpick, I would probably say a slightly later turning point, really kind of by a car length or so. But the main thing is I'm looking for is your throttle position is good, your apex point is good, you're able to use all the track on exit. Really all the main points I look for, I'm really, really happy with. So turn 2, nice job. You use all the track on exit. You're not lazy. This is where we start to differ on our lines. So till this point, perfect. I want to be apexing really the start of this orange curve here, and you can notice here how you're coming to the start of that. You are apexing there. The big note for me in the S's, where everything really happens, is I want to see you wait and keep on this curb until the end of this curb. So I want to be holding it left longer before I turn back to the right. The reason why you're struggling through turn 5 is really stemming from where you are here. Because you let it go to the inside too early, if I play this a little bit farther forward, notice how we're going off the curb. That is causing you to be too far to the inside here, which is meaning this next right-hander is becoming more tight than it needs to be because the radius of the corner is tighter because you're closer in. So I want to hold it left longer before I come back to the right because that's going to allow me to have a better car angle. I'm going to exaggerate this a little bit, but I'll be looking a little bit more in this direction as I'm approaching this right-hander by holding it right longer versus where you're still looking very much this direction, which means you have a much tighter corner as you go around it. And that's what's pushing you wider. So if you want to bring in a lot of speed to this left-hander, you can't keep it further right here. It pushes you further left, and now your radius for this left-hander, turn 5, is tighter than it needs to be as well. So really everything in the S's is holding it left slightly longer before coming back to the right, and that's going to set you up to be able to, at a higher speed or the similar speed, hold it right slightly longer, and then open up the radius for this left-hander and attack turn 5 a little bit more. Bam, bam, bam. I would also want to see you use all of the road on exit here. We're not really trying to sacrifice anything here, so I want to see you actually get out to this exit curb slightly earlier and be slightly straighter at this point. I'm trying to attack the entry of turn 6 as hard as I can, so I'll be slightly wider than you, and yes, that means the entry of turn 6 is slightly tighter, but it doesn't matter to me because that's going to allow me to bring more speed through 5, and either way, I'm going to end up doing the same thing in turn 6 as you, where I want to bring in enough speed to where I can't hold it to the inside. I run wider, but I'll probably get out there wider earlier. I'm going to try to get the car to rotate slightly earlier, just like you are too. Really nice job on the throttle. And then here, we end up in the same position, but I'll be faster through really that middle part of the S's and turn 5 because of the slight line change, and then I'll be able to attack 5 more, get out to the exit curb earlier, and drive it straighter, attack 6 a little bit more, and I'll be able to rotate at the same point and still get back to the same point as you here. So that's going to be probably what the main line change. Through 7 and 6 and 7, I'm really, really happy. That looks awesome. Let's turn the volume up here, and let's listen to your throttle through turn 8 and 9. So for me in turn 8 here, we're getting the throttle too early. Everything about turn 8 is to set up for turn 9. So really, my goal in turn 8 is to be, at this point, with my right side tires as far to the inside as possible, so that I've set up to have a bigger radius through turn 9, so that I can get back to full throttle earlier and be faster all the way down to turn 11. But you notice here, you're picking up the throttle slightly early. Most of the time I only get to throttle really as I'm turning back into the left, back to turn 9. But you notice there how you were getting to throttle, if I can get this back up, give or take in this area here, and that throttle's creating understeer. You're starting to move away from the outside of the track, and now turn 9's tighter than it needs to be. So you're not getting back to full throttle, it sounds like, till about here. And even if you're, or even later than that, but even if you're getting back to full throttle slightly earlier than what I'm saying, you do have a little bit more steering input needed out over here because of that understeer you induced with an early throttle. So what I'd really like to see you do is really focus in on that trail brake into turn 8. And this is, one of the most difficult corners for trail braking there is. But I really want you to think about getting off that heavy brake pressure earlier, braking lighter, braking lighter, braking lighter, braking lighter, coast, 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 and now go. And what will end up happening is you'll probably be slower from about here to about here. But then, because you've sacrificed a little bit there, you've brought in a little bit more entry speed, so you're faster until that first pause moment. You'll slow it down maybe a little bit more, set up for turn 9. You'll then be faster from this point all the way down to turn 11. And I want to be faster for a longer period of time. So really, the main concept here in turn 8, delay that initial throttle until so you can keep the car further right. And then as you come back to the left, as you're about to turn in for turn 9, that's where I'm trying to commit back to full throttle, get back to full throttle earlier. You can get this run all the way down to turn 11. So let's turn the volume back up here. I think turn 11 looks really good. Nice. A little hard to see the apex here, but that looks good. Slightly early to throttle for me if I were to nitpick again. Let me back this up. Let's see here. Okay. So we're starting to apply the throttle here, and we're close, but I really want you to see you wait until about here. So about a car length, and what I'm looking at is, I'm looking for your hands. I want to stay off the throttle until my hands start to open, which is right about here. That slightly early throttle, as you're asking for the car to carve down to the apex, so you can see with how much steering input you have in the car, you're asking for the front end to turn. And then as you're about to approach the apex and you're still asking for the front end to turn, you're taking away that front grip that you're wanting because you're applying the throttle slightly too early. So really work on delaying that throttle until you can start to unwind the steering wheel, which is right about here. And then once you start to unwind the steering wheel, that's where I want to get back to throttle. Use all the track on exit. Very, very nice. Alrighty, so jumping into turn 12 here. Turn 12, let's take a listen where our throttle comes. Pretty happy. Turn 12 looks good. Turn 13 I thought looked really good too. Very solid. Slightly late on the turn-in point. For me, the big thing is I would like to actually see you, if anything, turn in slightly earlier. Focus more on entry speed rather than getting a good exit. And if you flow more entry speed, what I want to see happen is I want you to use all the track on your left. Notice how we're not using this about a car width to 2 car widths of road out over here. I want to use that because then that's going to open up the radius for this corner here, and I'll have a less steering input, and I'll be able to roll more speed through 13. So focus on using the track out there, making sure that you're not overslowing the car. Because with how tight you're able to keep it here, I know you've overslowed a little bit. So bring a little bit more entry speed, get out there, use that extra track, and that's going to pay off dividends rather than trying to keep it in tight here. 15, really solid. Really, really solid. Love that you're braking in a straight line to the inside. Very nice. Off the brakes to throttle here. Awesome job. Really, really solid. 18, we need some work. We want to have an earlier turn-in point into 18. As we go under the bridge, I want to be about a half car width or so more to the inside. The next thing I want to do here is let's take a listen to what your throttle position sounds like all the way through 18. So I'm going to turn the volume up. Let's just listen one time full through, and then I'll come back to it. So the biggest issue for me in 18 really comes from a little bit of the line in the middle of the corner, and that's what's causing your really dull understeer all the way through it. So yeah, I want a little bit earlier turning point here. We're all good till this point, but I want to hold it in tighter through here, have less of this late apex approach here. So I'm going to be tighter in, not all the way tight in, but I'm talking about a third of a car width, half of a car width, closer to the inside, so not all the way to the white line. But I want an earlier apex for this next, kind of what I call the second apex here. And ultimately, the biggest mistake we've got is we're not using all of the track out over here. It's really critical to get your left side tires just next to this exit curb, so we're opening the radius of the corner for this right-hander. The understeer that we're dealing with here is two-part. The major reason is we're not all the way out left, so this next right-hander becomes tighter. The next thing is we're spending too much time on maintenance throttle. When we just have this dull maintenance throttle, we're not manipulating the car weight transfer to really significantly help us. We're just kind of sitting there with the weight off the front nose, and we just have this dull understeer all the way through, which you can hear with the dull maintenance throttle. So what I want you to see you do is attack this earlier part of the corner, attack through here, use the track, attack the entry a little bit more, so drive it harder to this point until you start to feel the understeer rather than anticipating the understeer. And then as you start to get to the understeer, that's where I want you to lift. And you'll probably have a bigger lift, so you'll spend more time at significant throttle, and maybe you'll even have a full lift. But that's where the front end carves back down, and then you'll get back to full throttle earlier as well, because now we're manipulating the car weight transfer better. So I want to see you attack a little bit more into this final part of the corner, and then as you get that understeer, that's where I want a bigger lift, maybe even a full lift for a short period of time, just to get that weight and the nose back carving to the inside, and then bam, you're back to full throttle, and you're going to be able to roll more speed through that section because you're manipulating the car weight better. Turn 19, I like that you're straddling the curb. Good entry, good turning point. You're really good through this. Yeah, you missed it a little bit. You kind of clipped the car. I know that you mentioned in your email you typically run on the inside of this. I'm really happy with that. The big thing for me is just making sure you were slightly late to throttle this time, and it's probably because you hit the curb, but it's really not a total entry speed corner. It's not much of an exit speed corner. Oftentimes when I make a mistake here is from flowing too much entry speed in. So just make sure you're able to start accelerating here. If you find that you're consistently only starting to get back to throttle out over here, it's too late, and you probably have slightly too much entry speed. So I don't want you to manipulate your entry speed so much that you're over slowing the corner, but bring it down a little bit so that you can start to apply the throttle here and still execute on your exit, just like you did. Turn 20, let's take a listen. Slightly too much entry speed, a little bit of a late brake zone. I think you mentioned that in your comments as well. I saw at the end of the previous lap you executed turn 20 really, really nicely. So you want to be apexing, of course, the start of this orange curb on that apex curb. Not touching the orange curb, but right down to it. That's where you want your throttle, getting a good exit. That'll really, really help. So I know that you can execute on that. So overall, you're driving awesome. There's no really low-hanging fruit. The foundations are strong. We want to manipulate our line a little bit better in the S's. Really focus on that difficult trail brake zone in 8. I think you've got a good foundation there. We continue. That's going to be like the next evolution of our trail braking. And then from there, yeah, the small changes into turn 18 as well. Those would be the main 3 things that we want to work on. So thanks again for using Racers 360. Of course, if you have any questions at all, we're always here for your help. I know we can hop on a call here and discuss some of these in a little bit more detail. But we're excited to be working with you, and hopefully we can be a part of your motorsports journey moving on.